Store ni Android ngoka. Surround in the kilaki na seodhi sa liwe na winding.
Oh, bera vale munrau. Tiko talenga na App Store ni no Apple phone go.
Oi, berusan roa.
Bongi ni winding lewu. Ena vaka umay na app ni FEO ena madala ni wili may na veya sana. Rawa ni odhingoma kina na madala ni winding ni pati kena mata konding itaka. FEO Results App. Vaka vondoka rawa ni kuwa.
Rawa ni vaka tumbu nini? But vaka rima mala. Oi, iyo na vaka rima mala na VTFM vaka ndua.
Lang sampul benang naturang na marama darbo kina ngone lewa sabi mamando no weekend na tini karuan kaloko na single budi single tu siti ni karuan ni single bulo ko topa rono ndolo tini ka wal dabaw di binaka na single binaka ni kuo na sang talito ro pala buno ngona ngona meron na bitar turun kina weekend o news director ni company binaka go Mr. Vijay Narayan wakatalang kina supervisor ni binding sa chiko talanga bitaki kenta Mr. Mohammed Saneem na single binaka ni kuo ngomenta na kilaba ka matate kina na weekend sa rangodo chima na moni mata sa ochi asuli mai kina na kani tugu matata mai na nonda volleyball lebu di matin tu na nonda bonua ro sati ko na single binaka ni ko meron na mai tomar na wingarabi na ruo chika na kina wasi bobola chika na duo chanda na tomar chika ni madob sar na ruo na kaloko na single binaka ni ko pia kan lamani au satu na rango wi ke mani ke mani ndo na moni taru ni ron ngir mani tul sebo walu ndo sebo dua ke tul sebo walu ndo sebo ruo.
Good afternoon to our listeners on VTFM and also everyone joining us from around the country and around the world through our website fijivillage.com. We are also carrying live coverage, video coverage via our Facebook page Fiji Village. Bula Vinaka to you, namaste. This is a special talkback, straight talk with our first guest this afternoon, and that is the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Mohammed Saneem. Good afternoon, Mr. Saneem, on behalf of all our viewers and listeners.
Good afternoon, Vijay. Pleasure to be here.
Now, just a few of the details, of course, that you'd like to know for those who are listening. If you want to ask any questions, yes, you can call in. The number to call is 3308. We would like to accommodate as many questions as possible, whatever you'd like to know as far as the general elections is concerned. You can also text in your questions for Vodafone and Ink users on 7777 and for Digicel users on 8484. Now, 3308 101, 3308 102. If you want to ask your questions, we will be taking your questions as we go throughout the show. We will be going throughout till 2 o'clock this afternoon, and hopefully you'll get a good insight into the details as far as the elections is concerned, as far as the voting processes are concerned, what has happened since Sunday. Of course, you know that on Sunday morning, Prime Minister Bainimarama, after arriving from New York, went to Government House and advised President Chiochi Konrote to dissolve Parliament. That was done on Sunday, and yesterday, of course, President Konrote issued the writ of elections, and that also saw a very significant step being taken, apart from elections date that was confirmed already, but for voters, your time frame ended for registration. So we'll go straight into that about registration. Of course, you've done a lot of work, Mr. Saneem, in relation to that, to get people enough time, enough, and a lot of venues to come forward and register.
Yes, Vijay. In fact, by the time we hit 6 o'clock yesterday, we had close to 60 operational venues around the country to facilitate the surge in the last minute rush for voters to update their details. We still continue to receive email queries overnight from voters, but the time was 6 o'clock Fiji time, and we have now closed voter services. It is closed now for 10 days. We will resume voter services from 11th of October. We estimate that close to 15 to 20,000 people visited our tents yesterday. Between the hours of 5 and 6, when we had about 60 operational areas, I think about 10,000 people would have visited our voter services centers around the country. So a huge rush in the last minute. Most of it was just to update the details, minor numbers in terms of registration, but most of it was to update details.
How are the numbers like at your 60 centers after 6 p.m.?
I think the longest queue would have been 15 people, but we had staff stationed at the end of the queue to make sure that anybody who has come after 6 o'clock does not join the queue. And I think that was managed very properly to ensure that only the full extent of the writ was complied with.
Let's talk about that, the process of time. Yes. Of course, it is very important for people to take this into account.
After that time, the assistant presiding officer will turn the person away. We will work according to the time on the presiding officer's clock around the country, and that means that the clock on the presiding officer's hand is the one that will count. So sometimes people turn their clock backwards and then come and say it's still time.
They have different times on
yes.
the clocks.
This is to come early in the morning. It will be a public holiday. It has been gazetted. Voters will be able to vote in the morning and then enjoy the rest of the day off. So please come in the morning, vote early. You will have the whole day to yourself and your family.
A free day to relax after you cast your vote.
It's absolutely, for some.
Not for us, definitely. Now, in relation to polling stations,
yes.
compared to, I got a lot of feedback during the 2014 elections. For those who were voters before the 2014 elections, they had gone to the previous polling stations before that. There were long queues, and there's something that you managed to fix in 2014 was the queues got shorter, and how you are attending to voters. We'll talk about that. But first of all, how many polling stations are you looking at for the 2018 elections in the different divisions compared to 2014?
So in 2014 we had 2,028 polling stations when we announced the final results. This included the postal polling stations. 2018 we expect close to 2,167 polling stations, and we might add a few more for postal.
So you've increased your polling station numbers.
Yes.
Based on what?
So polling station numbers have been increased because this is a voluntary voting system. The election needs to go to the people, and we in the vicinity of where voters resided for us to put polling stations. So what we did was we did our assessments and we included more polling venues around the country to allow voters more accessibility.
You're on VTFM. Bedeli is taking in the questions, and then we'll field them to as that date. Of course, you would have that number.
Published is from 17th of September. According to that data, the total number of registered voters is 634,000 voters, roughly, from 2014 to 2018, which is very much in line with our population trend, since in a year class you get roughly about 13,000 to 15,000 students. So this roughly matches with the incline. For 4 years you are expecting 45,000 new registrations, and so the increase in the number of voters is currently 43,000. So remember, we have to still remove some deceased voters, so that means the statistics roughly match out to the current actuals on the ground. This increase also is due to our annual registration drives rather than a direct registration drive during election year. A lot of students managed to register when they turned 18 in secondary schools before they left for tertiary education or they entered the work environment. So the increase is there, and it is a healthy increase, very much in line with the population trend.
Now, there's an interesting point that you raised there on the 2014 figures of 591,101 people, and now 634,120 people. You must be pleased in the last 4 years, the amount of work you've done, that it has encouraged people who become eligible to vote to come forward and register voluntarily.
Indeed, it was one of those ever occurring recommendations in every observer report that Fiji used to have before, that we should have a continuous updating of the voters' roll. In fact, in the region, Fiji is one of the leading countries that has taken up this approach. You might remember we faced some criticism in 2015 when we initially started doing this, but the value of all those works that we did post 2014 election will actually now be visible in front of us. And here we have a classic example where yesterday, instead of having hundreds of people lining up and at 6 o'clock, we had a maximum line number of 10 people, etc. This was just updating of details. You didn't see secondary school students or tertiary students lining up to register unless they had missed out during the school registration. So there are a lot of election initiatives that a full-time election management body puts in place. We are now a full-time election management body, and there is value in having a full-time election management body. As you can now see, 43,000 people registered, and and yesterday when we closed the roll, you didn't see the entire country go into panic and people come up and say, I haven't registered. But in fact, a lot of the people were smooth sailing and saying, I'm registered, I have my card. So these are some of the benefits of having a full-time election management body, and we hope that Fijians continue to recognize the value in having such an organization, an institution that can continue to strengthen our electoral democracy.
Based on your assessment, you've been the supervisor of elections, led your team in 2014, and now 4 years later again. Based on your assessment, what were the flaws prior to that when you did not have a full-time elections management body in place?
The first one I'll point out is that the role was usually criticized for a number of reasons. The updating of the role would usually be left to the very last minute, leaving quite a majority. If you look at the registration rates in 2006 and 2001 and 1998, these were pretty vastly different from the population statistics that were published at the time. At this point in time, I would actually challenge population data based on my voters data, because I have actuals. I have actuals, meaning I have the details of every voter recorded on a paper, as well as electronic data. And if you want, bring up the voter cards of every voter around the country and count it. So that's actuals, and we are very confident with this. Our system has photographs. So if you are turning up to vote, the polling station list will have your photograph on the list, so you will be verified easily. So nobody can turn up with someone else's photograph unless they have already registered. So that is how we work in that regard. Other things like voter awareness, we've managed to get a curriculum inserted into the secondary schools. This was something that was a long time
All
coming.
schools are teaching that?
It's actually a compulsory subject for 2 weeks, and it will be tested in the final exams.
So which year students have that?
Year 10.
Year 10
Year 10,
students.
yes. Year 10 students get to learn about elections, and we got an international consultant to come and develop this program with us. And it has been run successfully this year. A lot of students enjoyed this. We've done a survey. They said it's one of the most enjoyable 2 weeks in class. We've also managed to start discussions with the universities to introduce election courses as part of university curriculum. The USP is leading this charge with our consultants from Indonesia. We'll shortly be talking with the Fiji National University to try and partner with the university so that we can do a master's level program on election management. In terms of the election logistics structure, the Fijian Elections Office has managed to create a data map of the whole country in terms of locations of various key locations, such as the hospitals, police stations, schools, and as well as our polling venues. And we've matched this data with other agencies. We're asking for GPS tags to be put on ballot boxes. No point in having a GPS tag if it is flying over mountains, because there's no road mapped on a map. So you have to start from step by step, no putting the cart before the horse. So you have to have a data map first. Once your map is tested crowdsourcing, then you can start with other improvements like having a GPS tag so that it can track your ballot box. Right now, you can put a tag on a ballot box. It will show you going through the mountain, and you will say, why are they not taking the road? Well, the road's not been mapped yet. They are actually on the road, but it looks like that. So those are some of the things, improvements, not only in terms of elections, but generally for various other sectors in terms of the development of the country.
We've got a question here about via text. I know you had a press conference about this as well, about security.
Let me put it very clearly. Election security will only be provided by Fiji Police. We will not be hiring any private security for the storage, for the security or surveillance of ballot boxes. Fiji Police Force has got a plan in place. They have got themselves organized. They will be the ones doing this for us. It is unfortunate that some people, fake profiles, have taken to propagating this information. It is not going to be any private security. There will only be Fiji Police providing security for this election.
How are you handling this fake profiles and Facebook posts that are constantly putting out information which is just non-factual information, and people are just jumping onto it? How are you dealing with it, knowing that you are carrying out your awareness campaigns, trying to say that things are being done this way, while you have this tide of comments coming through based on non-factual information?
Yes, good question. I think this is where a person has to use their own mind to determine the credibility of the information that they receive. And then there are known sources on Facebook themselves who are known to be continuously publishing false materials, defamatory materials, libelous materials, designed to attack the character or attack an institution. And as an ordinary person, people know that, okay, the reason for this person saying anything on Facebook is just to malign somebody, or malign an institution, or malign a fact. Some of them are obviously fake profiles. In fact, now it's come to a stage where on some places on social media, one fake profile makes a statement, and then the 10 other fake profiles comment on the statement, and then they wait for some real people to comment, and then fake profiles again comment, to just try and show that there's a high level of activity. In fact, I think these people are living in a small cocoon, but people are now starting to realize how desperate these attempts are to try and malign a process, which is in fact very, I would say, I am confident to say that this process is accountable, it is transparent. And if we were not transparent, I would not face up to you today to answer the questions that are being thrown at us. And I'm giving an open challenge to all these fake profilers to line up outside my office to debate with us. If they have the guts,
maybe a waste of time.
Well, let's just see if the fake profiles can turn up in the first place. If you have the guts, come and see us face to face. I think my open challenge to these fake profilers, I think if through this network, if all Fijians are listening, we are in election mode, and this is the time when we'll take the bull by the horns. And if these fake profiles
beat around the bush.
No beating around the bush, we'll beat the bush. So bring your bush and come this side. Let's have a chat. We are all here. All this fake information, any of them can turn up. Let's see who you are. And so this evening, expect a huge barrage of comments and maligning information about me on social media, because they have no guts. They have no guts. I speak the truth. I speak confidently because I speak the truth. I no need to lie, because all these statements that I'm making, I have published it, and I have the guts to do it. So if you have the guts to put fake news out there, let's meet. Come down to the Fijian Elections Office. Bring your information. Let's see what's the strength of your character.
You're on Straight Talk. Our guest today is the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Mohammed Saneem. I'm Vijay Narayan, and another question coming through. When is the next refresher course for polling officials?
there are quite a few refresher courses that will start soon. Please stay tuned to the Fiji Elects 2018 Facebook page for announcements to be made by the HR team. At this point in time, this week, we're just trying to get confirmations from anybody who has been issued with a contract. This question is from a staff, actually. So if you have been issued with a contract, please contact the HR team to confirm your availability. The HR team will then assign you to a refresher training.
So there you go, refresher courses. Now, on courses, on how to do things.
Yes.
I've come to a few of your demonstrations that you've had. For example, the count demonstration.
Yes.
There was another big issue being raised before that regarding elections office not allowing people to come into the room and check in full view how the count is taking place. That the issue was raised by a National Federation Party official that how close is next to the table.
Yes.
And issues like that they may not be able to see the ballot paper. Now, that kind of information was raised publicly. Now, you've done the count demonstration where you'll be standing actually right next to the table. Just for the benefit of all our listeners who are tuned in all around the country and through FijiVillage.com, can you explain the procedure? Because some people are still unsure about the count process. Now, let's play out the scenario.
Yes.
Voting has finished, 6 p.m. Of course, most of the places, the polling station will become counting stations.
Yes.
What happens after that?
So everywhere in Fiji where we'll have election on the 14th of November, that place will be counting the same night. So every polling station on 14th of November will become a counting station in the evening. The ballot boxes will have to be opened at that station and counted there and then.
So, to make it clear for the listeners, there is no transportation of ballot boxes from the polling stations on that day.
No. Counting will be done where voting took place. Under extreme circumstances, if there is a complaint by the police officer of security risk, etc., we will consider it, but it will not happen. The counting will take place where voting took place on election day. Pre-poll ballot boxes will be counted at the count center. So on election night, the counting that happens at the polling station will be final count. There is no second count or third count. That's the final count. The results that come out of that count are the final results for that station. Coming back to your question, in fact, if we look at the clarity around what happens, so at 6 o'clock, the presiding officer will announce that the polling station will now close, and the assistant presiding officer, if there is a queue, they will manage the queue first, finish it off, and then they will set up the polling station for count. So the PO will announce that we will now set up for count. They will set up for count, and party agents have to be inside the polling station at this time. So my advice to parties was to be at the polling station by 5:30, so that you can be inside the polling station when they set up for count.
You come after 6, you lose out.
You come after 6, the PO might not let you in, because the PO cannot leave.
A PO is
The presiding officer. The presiding officer cannot leave the setup. The presiding officer will be busy setting up, arranging the tables, sorting out the ballot box where it has to be placed, getting all the books down for reconciliation, and they will start. So it won't be that they will wait for 5:06 or 10:06 to start. POs have been trained straight at 6 o'clock. They need to start setting up for count, and the count process once started will not stop. So they have to take it right through. So the PO is going to start setting up the place. Agents have to be inside the venue. Once they're inside the venue, they will be able to record what's happening. Now, where can they stand? They can stand next to the table, so long as they are not disrupting the process. Now, someone said, okay, if we stand next to the table and we can't have pen and paper, how can we write? So you stand at arm's length so that you cannot reach a ballot paper with your pen. That is the thing. Some of these things is quite common sense, so that you are there to view the process. Agents are there to view the process. Agents must do their own recording. They must not interfere with the process. Party officials must train their agents in this regard. Election officials have been trained that once they start the process, they must continue and finish the process. There are various places within the process where the recording has to be done. That's all to be done. So the demonstration has also been done to party agents twice. And the first time we put chairs for their convenience, so none of them got up to come close enough to see. This second time when we did it, we took away all the chairs so that they actually realized that they have to stand and have to come closer to see what's happening. So we even you were present at that demo for the count, right?
Yes, I was.
Yes, and if you remember, there was this particular person from one of the parties who initially started this at a panel of some sort. That person refused to go next to the table, and I asked that person twice, please come and have a look from here, and she said, no, I'm okay, I can see. So sometimes I feel that this is just mischievous to create a big hoo-ha about something just so that you are in the limelight. But eventually when you find that, okay, this was not plainly common sense, then you try and avoid. So hence the reason why we invited the media, because we want it to be transparent. A lot of Fijians were misled by these statements.
And that's why you're here today,
Yes.
to verify the information, to clarify issues that have been raised by people. There's another question sent through text. Does the Elections Office provide transportation for the elderly or disabled during polling day?
Sorry, the Fijian Elections Office does not provide transportation for polling day. The Fijian Elections Office will be getting in touch with Fiji Bus Operators Association as well as with the LTA to make arrangements for the 14th of November, which is a public holiday, and details will be released shortly.
So that process will be, you'll be ensuring that bus services are running on the day?
That is the plan, yes.
To ensure that people can reach the polling station?
Yes. In 2014, the Bus Operators Association provided that service, and I'm sure that they will be willing to do so this year. But as I said, we have to still talk to them.
What options are available for the elderly and disabled who may not be able to reach the polling station?
You can apply for a postal vote. You can download the form, send it to us. EMS will deliver the postal package to you.
So let's talk about postal vote in relation to those who would like to get that service. I believe it is open now.
Postal applications open from yesterday.
Applications
Yes.
have opened from yesterday, and what do they have to do?
So there is a form they have to fill. In the form, please be careful to write down where you want us to deliver your postal package. And once we have that information, we will check your form. You have to get it signed through in front of a JP or Commissioner for us. And once we receive your application, if it is not approved, we will notify you within 48 hours that it's not approved. If it is approved, we'll still also notify you that it has been approved. And then on 27 days after the writ is issued, we will start dispatching the postal application, the postal packages. So, and EMS in Fiji, local ones will be done by EMS. They will deliver to your place, and you can call them and they'll pick up from your residence as well.
Now, on postal voting, of course, you've got a deadline there. By what time should that
Yes.
take place? I believe it is the 24th.
Yes, postal
Of
voting
this month.
applications close at 5 p.m. on the 24th of this month.
So there you go, listeners. It has been made clarified. If you want to do postal voting, the applications opened yesterday. The forms are on the Fijian Elections website, and they will be taking applications, field applications, up to 5 p.m. on the 24th of this month. If you are worried about someone who's elderly, may not be able to go to the polling station, that is based on the question regarding transportation, or one of your friends or relatives who is disabled, you would like them to vote, that is the best option that has been suggested by the Supervisor of Elections. Apply for postal ballot between now until the 24th of this month, and if that is successful, the ballot will be posted to you and the process can take place. We'll take a short break, and when we'll come back, we'll talk about pre-polling.
Tata Narorongo VTFM Vakandua.
Welcome back here on Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan, and our guest this afternoon is the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Mohammed Saneem. Mr. Saneem, of course, everything that we are going through at the moment, people, if you have any questions, call into 3308 101 3308 102. We'll take in your questions and ask them any question, any clarification you want. That was a good question about the disabled and the elderly. Now, also, if the disabled and the elderly do come to the polling stations, what are the processes there? You have also got some processes in line for your polling officials.
Yes, if a person with disability comes to the polling station, we prefer to give them first chance to come in and vote. And this is where we seek empathy from all Fijians who are already in the queue. Please allow them to go in and vote. We haven't had any issues around that in 2014. I'm sure it won't be in 2018 as well. So they get first preference to come in and quickly vote. If you are a person with disability, you can be assisted by a person of your own choice, provided that person is a registered voter, and that person must bring his or her voter card. And that person doesn't have to be from that same polling station. As long as they're a registered voter, they can help you mark your ballot paper. This process of helping the person with disability will be supervised by the presiding officer. And if the person doesn't follow the wishes of the voter, the presiding officer will ask police to step in, and the person will then be arrested, etc. And the PO will then provide that assistance in the presence of the assistant presiding officer.
I was talking to some senior citizens a few days ago, and they were saying that in 2014 they had been voting for a number of years in previous elections. What they noticed was that when they arrived at the polling station, officials actually noticed that they were there standing in the line and got them to the front and got them to vote. So there is some processes like that in place?
Yes, in fact we have in our trainings emphasized that to our staff to facilitate things for voters. And if they see a person who is elderly who cannot stand in the line, they will definitely allow that person in quickly. Same goes for pregnant ladies. The staff will facilitate that for them.
Now, if there are any issues at the polling station, for example, if a voter felt that they were not treated well, what is the process that they can follow?
So we have now made live the complaints page on our Facebook page, complaints page on our website, and you can go to that complaints page, put out your details, and you can send us your written complaint, and the Fijian Elections Office will then quickly investigate that. At the moment, our complaints process turnaround time is 2 days. Provided it is a legitimate complaint, we will be able to take action. On election day, if something like that is reported, we will have a full team on standby who will receive this, and we will action it immediately.
You're on VTFM. This is Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan, and our guest this afternoon is the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Mohammed Saneem. Mr. Saneem, a question here. Can polling stations be changed now?
Sorry, polling station change deadline was 6 o'clock yesterday. It cannot be changed anymore.
Which means if you were registered as a voter in Rasa, Lautoka, and you have shifted to Nasese, what happens now?
If you have not amended your residential address with us, you will still find yourself at the polling station where you voted last time. You will not find yourself at a polling station nearby because you have not updated your details. We don't know if you have moved or not.
So if you want to vote, you have to go back to Lautoka to cast your vote.
Yes.
There you go.
Or you can apply for a postal vote.
Or you can apply for a postal vote. However, you cannot change your registration details or your polling station. Just on polling stations, you had polling stations in the 2014 elections. Those polling stations remain, and there are new ones added on. Will there be any polling stations removed from 2014?
So the best way for voter to find out where they are voting is to text their voter card number to 1500. That service is currently suspended because we just got a bulk of data yesterday, and in a few days time the service will be up again. But if you had voted in a polling station in 2014, there's a highly likely chance the polling station hasn't moved, except for the Civic Center, which has been renovated now. So the polling station has been moved, and Vijay Narayan College, I think, has been moved. So voters would best check to find out where they're voting now.
So Civic Center is a polling station at the moment, or is no longer?
Civic Center as a polling station because
So there
it
you
can't
go.
enter.
If you were registered as a voter for Suva Civic Center, that is no longer a polling station going forward for 2018 elections. To save any hassles, you can text 1500 and you will
voter
find
card
out.
number.
So people have been moved from that places to another polling station, or they've been distributed to other polling stations?
Actually, I think the entire Civic Center group people have been moved to another location.
Would
It's
you
just the
know what
location has changed. Sorry, I cannot often tell you that.
We'll try to get that location for you,
Yes.
just because definitely that's a big population area. And the other one you had said Vijay Narayan College.
Yes.
So again, we will be giving you details on that. However, you cannot access the information at the moment, as Mr. Saneem has said, because a lot of data has come in, which they're trying to verify after, of course, the registration period ended at 6 p.m. So 2 polling stations which have definitely, which will not be operational in the 2018 elections, that has been confirmed, and that's the Suva Civic Center and Vijay Narayan College. They will no longer be polling stations for this election. Now, another question here. This person's brother-in-law has died 2 weeks ago. What should they do?
You can still advise us, notify us that the person had died, and we will be able to remove the person from the voters list.
Mr. Saneem, another question. What will happen if I lose my voter ID card today before the elections?
You can replace it. The voter service centers will open from 11th of October right up until the day before elections. So you'll still have roughly 30 days to change your details. Not change your details, please. Just to
Just get a new
replace
card.
your voter card. Yes.
So there you go. If you have lost your voter ID card, I've met a lot of people who have said, I've lost my voter ID card because they've been using that voter ID card for a number of other IDs, and they were worried about it. 11th October, the Voter Services Center open, and of course they will remain open until 13th November.
Yes.
13th November.
Yes.
So from 11th October to 13th November, if you have misplaced your voter ID.
Actually, if I can use this platform right now, it appears that there is a fake profile. Information is incorrect. No more registration of voters. It has closed. We will not allow changes of details. Center voters will vote at Suva Foreshore Car Park. We will be setting up an FEO shed at the car park for those voters. And if someone is listening in, you will be voting at the Suva Civic Center Foreshore Car Park.
Okay, and for Vijay Narayan College?
We're still getting that
Still
data.
getting the details. Thank you very much, Mr. Saneem, getting all that information. As you listen to Straight Talk, you will get all the information as things are happening. That profile on Linda Tambuya, we'll actually call Mrs. Tambuya
Yes.
after this to ensure that we get that verified as well.
Sure.
So please, also there's a lot of fake profiles out there. This one being suggested. The voter registration has ended as at 6 p.m. yesterday,
Yes.
and there will be no extension. There is no extension. It is about what happens.
Open during the Saturday and Sunday to facilitate parties who wish to nominate or independent candidates who wish to nominate. So if the party officials are listening to us at this point in time, please nominate early so that we can deal with your nomination, and if there are people who are rejected by us, you can still replace them. But if you nominate on the last day, if we reject somebody, you will not be able to replace that, and your candidate numbers will go down. For independent candidates, anybody who wishes to contest the election as an independent candidate, you can nominate at any point in time now, and you can bring us your 1,000 supporters list as well as your nomination form, and we will process it. We are on standby. The office hours have been extended from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to facilitate this, and this is to assist anybody who wishes to nominate within these 14 days.
Anyone has come forward with nominations as yet?
We haven't received any yet. We may be receiving some. We hope that political parties, are able to nominate as early as this week. We've had this time election has been known since 4 years, and if anything, we have all known that there will be an election this year. And since April, it has been a live period for elections. So a lot of parties have announced candidates, and they should be able to nominate as early as possible.
Now, there is also another message. If you put in your nominations early and if for some reason the person did not make it, you could replace by putting in another nomination. However, what happens if the nomination period is over? What's the process?
So if the nomination is done on the last day and nomination period closes before we make the decisions, then the party will not be able to replace the candidate that has been rejected. In 2014, only one party, Fiji First, nominated before election. The nominations closed, and as a result, one of their candidates withdrew, and they were able to replace the candidate and still field 50 candidates. Other parties nominated on the last day, and when we rejected candidates, they couldn't replace them. So advice is to nominate early. And as I said, everybody has had 4 years. Nominations. There are some parties that have even announced candidates. We invite you to please nominate as early as possible. We would try and turn around within 2 days every nomination that is filed with us, so that you have information in hand.
The nomination period ends on the 15th of October. What happens after that, Mr. Saneem?
So on the 15th of October at noon, the nominations close. For the next day, that same day, we will publish the list of approved candidates. The next day till midday, the approved candidates have opportunity to withdraw, and also on the 16th of October until 4 o'clock, time is there for appeals and objections to be filed. And once appeals and objections have been filed, the Electoral Commission will deal with them, and for 3 days. They have time for 3 days, and as soon as the decision is made on the appeals and objections, the FEO will conduct the candidate bold draw.
We'll talk about candidate eligibility after this question. I think this is also maybe one from one of your volunteers or staff. Will elections officials be recognized by the government after elections, for example, given certificates of recognition?
Everybody will be given a certificate of service as per the Electoral Act. Actually, as per employment laws, yes.
How many people have you got as your employee list for the elections this time?
Around 11,600.
And all you've been going through a lot of training sessions to get them ready?
I was looking, I think we've run so far 1,400 sessions of training for election officials. I have news on the Vijay Narayan College. Yes, Vijay Narayan College as a polling venue has been closed, and all the voters from Vijay Narayan College will be voting at the Fiji National Council of Disabled Persons Complex.
Okay, that's at Brown Street.
Brown Street. We have moved these voters because of the climb that was there to make it accessible. FNCDP halls have been used for
so no
election.
more going up the hill, going flat straight
Yes.
in.
We'd like to thank the management of Vijay Narayan College for allowing us to use the facility, and for increase of to enhance access, we've moved it to FNCDP.
So there you go. The two changes have been confirmed. The Suva Civic Centre, no more a polling station. The Suva Civic Foreshore will be the polling station there if you are registered. And Vijay Narayan College will not be a polling station in the 2018 election because of the high driveway up. They have decided to go with the Fiji National Disabled Complex, which is located along Brown Street. There's no other polling stations. Thank you very much. People are coming back and thanking you for that information, that quick information.
Any of my staff will be under any security threat. I would think that we would feel more secure walking from one village to the other, knowing full well that everybody knows it's an election team, but the police will be there providing security.
Going back to the nomination of candidates on candidate eligibility, there's some eligibility rules that is in the Constitution and in the Electoral Act. If you can highlight which ones you're looking at to ensure that people also know that if a candidate is not eligible, the person will know, okay, based on this, because the law says this, that is why they missed out.
So To be a candidate, you have to be a registered voter, first and foremost. Secondly, you must be a citizen of Fiji and not hold dual citizenship or any citizenship of another country. Prior to your nomination, you must renounce your citizenship. If you know that you are a citizen of another country and you have renounced, please attach your documents proving that you have renounced your citizenship of another country.
You would need to cite that document.
We would like to cite the document, because if there is an objection following your approval, then you will have to do the hard yards.
What happens if you do not put that document in and it's gone in the last day for nominations?
Yes.
What happens after that? Do you give that candidate time to give that document to you?
If it is if the Fijian Elections Office through immigration records finds that you are still holding another citizenship and we reject your nomination on the last day, you will have to appeal the decision to be able to convince the commission that you still are eligible. So might as well do the easy part, which is to give us the document in support of your renouncing, so that we have that on hand. In 2014, there was a candidate whose nomination was filed, and this candidate's court conviction actually said that this conviction will be quashed after 3 months or 6 months. It was not quashed, it was not removed from the police record. So the Fijian Elections Office, we found that he had a police record because it was on the record, and we didn't approve his nomination. Because it was all filed on the last day, he was rejected.
So the candidate eligibility, there you go again. The first one is you have to be a registered voter.
Yeah.
You have to be a citizen of Fiji and not holding citizenship of any
Another
other
country.
country,
Yes.
and to provide that document.
Yes. Then you have to be ordinarily resident in Fiji for at least 18 months out of 24 months prior from being nominated. So this time period would now be effective from the 1st of October 2016. We will be counting 18 months out of 24 months from
So
1st
if
of
you
October.
have not stayed for 18 months in the last 2 years in Fiji,
you will not
lose
be
out.
eligible. Yes. And this data will be made available to us from your travel history. And under Section 24, we can seek this information. You must not be an undischarged bankrupt. We will do a bankruptcy search. You must not have been a member of the Electoral Commission or for the last 4 years. There's only, at this point in time, there's only 7 people in this country who are within this category, and another 7 who are the current commissioners.
so they are already disqualified from being nominated.
Yes. You must not be subject to a sentence of imprisonment when nominated, or you must not be must not have been convicted of any offence under any law for which the maximum penalty is a term of imprisonment of 12 months or more at any time during 8 years immediately before being nominated. Or you must not have been guilty of any offence under a law relating to elections, registration of political parties, registration of voters, or including any offence prescribed under the Electoral Act. At this point in time, if my recollection serves me correctly, there are 6 people who are ineligible under this provision.
Now, in relation to another question coming through from one of our listeners, can you please explain the allocation of seats when the votes are tallied up?
I'll take the shortcut answer to this one. The allocation of seats is done based on the Electoral Act. It's quite a lengthy process. But what we will be doing is in a few days' time, we will actually be publishing in the daily newspapers a handout, which will actually be a worksheet on how seats are allocated. This worksheet is supposed to assist voters in learning how seats are allocated. You can use that. We will also be putting up a web page where you can actually do trial and error seat allocation. You'll enter your number of votes, and the site will tell you the seat allocation. But there are some pertinent points that have to be noted. Number one is that there is a threshold of 5% of the total turnout.
That means, for the people listening, the political party has to cross that 5% threshold. They have to have secured 5% of the total number of votes cast.
That's the first thing. The second thing is, excuse me, after the 5% threshold is used to eliminate parties that did not reach the 5%, we will then use the D'Hondt formula to calculate how many seats each party has won. Once we have done that, then we will go back to the individual votes received by candidates in the party and see from the highest to the lowest how many the number of seats the party won. That's the number of people that will get into parliament.
And it's basically a proportional rep of which party you are in. There's candidates going against each other from other parties, then they go and of course a calculator, a special online calculator will be provided by the elections office for you to play around with numbers in the next few days. So that would be something new that the Fijian elections office will be doing. There's another question here: the number of ballot papers used in polling stations, whether it is exact to the number of registered voters, or do you carry spares?
So every polling station has a maximum number of 500 voters. In the law, we are allowed to assist a voter who may have spoiled their ballot paper by giving a spare. That's the only one that you can get. So if there are, say, 500 voters, we are giving a contingency of at least 10% of that number, because in case 50 people make mistakes and ask for a replacement ballot paper, the polling station should have sufficient number. If more than 50, then they have to make arrangements and borrow from another location. But that's what we are giving in light of the fact that the law allows someone who spoiled their ballot paper to get us a replacement. Now, so the formula we are using is the minimum number of ballot papers to be given to a polling station in contingency is 10%. So for a polling station that has 500 voters, we are giving 50 extra ballot papers. The ballot papers are all printed and bound in books of 50. So for polling station of 500, they will get 10 books plus one more is contingency. 550 ballot papers, 11 books. But say for a polling station that is 200 ballot paper, 200 voters, that means the contingency sum will be 20. So what we do, we don't tear out 20 ballot papers from the book, we give them a full book. So that polling station will receive 5 books but 250 ballot papers. 250 ballot papers. But if the same polling station, sorry if I'm confusing you with the mathematics here, but if the same polling station had 220 voters, that means the contingency for that polling station will be 22 ballot papers. So they are entitled to receive 244 ballot papers. We'll still give them 5 books, which is 250 ballot papers. So that is how we calculate this. The ballot paper production manager at the office, Ranjit Singh, he has got a full Excel sheet that calculates how many ballot books have to be produced. We're looking at roughly 17,000 ballot books at this point in time.
So how many ballot papers?
780,000.
780,000 ballot papers to be printed, and of course you have a proper reconciliation system in place on how many spare ballot papers and spoilt ballot papers, Mr. Saneem?
Yes, that's for contingency for spoiled ballot papers.
And for the spoiled ballot papers, of course, the party agents will be there to they're ready to view that as well when they're seen as spoiled ballot papers.
Spoiled ballot papers by voters will be actually packed in envelopes and reconciled in the afternoon. And party agents, if they are there, they'll be able to record that.
So there you go. If party agents have any issues with spoiled ballot papers as well, during the day when their ballot papers are spoiled during voting, another ballot paper can be provided to the voter at the polling station, and then that information is kept with all the spoiled ballots, and that will also be opened up after 6 p.m. when counting begins. So there you go. In relation to that, we will take a short break and be right back. Straight Talk here with the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Mohammed Saneem.
I have a few more changes.
Tomando una solía
Matata Narolongo VTFM Vakandua.
Good afternoon, I'm Vijay Narayan. This is Straight Talk. Our guest on VTFM this afternoon is the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Mohammed Saneem. Mr. Saneem, now going on to another question from one of our listeners. He is a security officer. He says during public holidays he definitely works and he finishes off at 7 p.m. But he wants to cast his vote. What can he do?
If you are employed and you are unable to go to your polling station due to your employment on election day, you can apply for a postal vote.
So there you go again. If you're working on that day, you can apply for postal voting as well. And as we had said earlier, postal voting applications are now open and will close at 5 p.m. on the 24th of this month. And how do you qualify for postal voting? You have to go and get a form. It's on the elections office website, or you can go to an elections office voter services center, get that form, fill it in, and when you qualify for it, the ballot will be posted to you. So there you go, your option available if you are working on the public holiday on November 14th, which is election day. Now, let's turn to pre-polling, Mr. Saneem. A number of places you'll have pre-polling. Which are the designated areas which will have pre-polling, and how does that work? I believe pre-polling starts on the 5th of November.
So pre-polling starts on the 5th of November right up until the 10th of November. Pre-polling is done mostly in rural areas and remote locations. One of the and as well as in disciplined forces. Pre-polling for the outer islands, the schedule will be released by tomorrow. We will be able to directly tell you where we are going, when and what time. And once that is released, we will also do a campaign to these areas to go and actually make these people aware. So a lot of these locations is about 582 locations where pre-polling will be done, and we will be releasing dates and times tomorrow.
So the 582 locations, this would be mainly in the maritime areas?
Maritime areas, the
interior?
Highlands, yes.
Yep.
The Highlands.
And which and
At the count center in Suva.
how many registered voters will be voting during the pre-poll period?
Based on the 17th of September figures, pre-poll numbers stand at 67,540. We are yet to finalize the roll for the disciplined forces, so we expect the number to go up to 70,000.
Just a question on voting for people who are working on the day. There was a question from a listener who's a security officer.
The applications, we have advised them to try and send it to us in batches so that we can prepare the batch is return packages for postal and send it to those, or if they give individual address, we'll send it through individual address, but they have to apply for postal votes and we will send them postal votes. Nurses and doctors, I especially request them to apply for postal, because we would prefer to have a doctor in hospital rather than standing in queue to vote. Similarly for firemen, police officers, tourism sector employees, and if some of the HR teams are tuning in right now from the tourism sector, please contact the Fijian Elections Office through, well, you can actually download the forms, distribute it to your staff so they are all able to exercise their rights and at the same time ensure that they are present for the essential role in the essential industry.
There you go. For essential industries where you know that during public holidays work continues, the option right there, you can apply for postal ballot, but that has to be into account. Now, in relation to political parties, you've been doing a lot in relation to demonstration of each process, almost on a weekly basis. You may have two sometimes every week. All parties are turning up?
Yes, we've had good turnouts at demonstrations and workshops. There is one tomorrow. We hope this is our final one. This is on election logistics, a full presentation on the entire election logistics. Now that we know the date, it becomes easier for us to talk about logistics. This is tomorrow, and we have confirmations from parties already, so we will be running this workshop. We have taken this approach of show and tell, so that parties are able to actually experience the processes directly, and then they can design their way of scrutiny.
Is it working? Because just a few weeks ago we had some political parties who had made very strong statements about the process of elections and about the Fijian Elections Office, and this is despite you reaching out and having all these awareness programs. How are you dealing with that when the political parties are saying publicly that they do not have confidence in some of the systems?
First of all, if they are using that as a political tool to gain publicity, then I have to step away from that place in the 50-day period. They now have it. They've never had direct access to results in the palm of their hand. They now have it. Political parties, officials, have never been through international standard trainings. The last 4 years, they attended 6 of these trainings. Political parties have had access to the Fijian Elections Office for a continuous period of 4 years. They never had this sort of access. Now, the amount of materials we have published, the candidates handbook published in January this year, the political party agents handbook published in June last year. One party actually asked us for 7,000 copies just last week and said we have to train our agents. Now, this amount of information was never there. Some of the discussions actually encourages me, because parties are now talking at a level where they want to talk about, we want to talk about logistics, we want to talk about seals. This is actually, in one sense, is healthy for them to be talking about this, because we hope it builds their capacity to understand why it's there. But on the same note, I mean, sometimes it gets a bit disappointing when you see that political parties who were part of a workshop, but they send the very junior most person they can find. One political party, in fact, in the last 4 years, has sent various different people to these workshops, who today come as this party and tomorrow come as another party. And then the next time you see them hanging around with another party. So sometimes they just fill the gap. This is quite disappointing. I mean, it's...
So do you think the right feedback is going back to the senior officials of the party who are making these comments that they do not have confidence in the system?
So I can speak for one political party. There, we had to call the leader in to discuss the issues with the
Which
leader.
party is that?
Unity Fiji. The Unity Fiji representative to FEO workshops usually ends the workshop by assuring us that he has full confidence in the process, but the leader then sends an article to the Fiji Sun in the weekends and says he has no confidence in the process. We invited the leader to attend a training so that he can build his own capacity. I mean, there's a line that party leaders need to ensure that they always keep to, and in this regard, if you look at the US elections, Donald Trump heavily criticized the election. Now he's the president of the United States. Everybody's turning around to him and saying, but you got elected through a bad election. That's his word, that's his own words used against him. So parties must exercise caution when they question all these things. We had one political party which did not understand that Fiji no longer follows constituencies. And it made huge publications about the fact that the voter list had a polling venue in Reykjavik being managed by the Eastern Office. Now, these are confusions that the bureaucrats within the parties create by not trying to understand what
is
the
your
process is from the Fijian Elections Office that you can go through to build your own capacity. The Fijian Elections Office, our main stakeholder is the voter. We don't want voters to be confused. We want the voters to have the right information, and they should also be able to know what information.
It is deliberately
assured us that they understand the process. Sometimes people have been quite irate about the way people are, some comments are being made, but this is the 44-day period. We are in the middle now. The game has started. We need to now know what the current rules are. These are the rules that the referee will. It's a voluntary process. 8. And will run until all the candidates are finished. The where to look, etc., etc. So you'll be voting for the number of one person, and then the vote that person gets will be totaled for the person, as well as add to the party's total.
So there you go. You will actually have candidate numbers on the ballot paper. Their draw is expected to be done on the 19th of October. Or earlier, if determined by the Fijian Elections Office. I believe it will be done at the Grand Pacific Hotel.
Yes.
Now, that we'll have live coverage of that when that happens. Now, in relation to that, some of the political parties had actually pushed and are still pushing that they want party symbols and party names on the ballot paper. Can you please explain, because there have been, I believe, representations have been made to you, although you are not the lawmaker.
Yes.
If you can explain that to our listeners, please.
So technically, if we put the party symbol and the name and number of a person on the ballot paper, you will get a ballot paper the size of 2 newspaper sheets, a newsprint. That's how big your ballot paper will be. If you think that the current ballot paper is confusing, try finding a name amongst 300 names in a newsprint with font size 12. So that's the first obligation, the first problem. Now, secondly, let's look at from a logistics point of view, and this is where one of the leaders said, but forklifts. Every polling station will need to have. So forklifts have to be at every polling station. Trying to carry that, political parties think that is not a problem. let's look at the problem of the voter having to look for names in a sheet their own satisfaction because of the number, the sense of so many symbols, names and photos in your front of you, and the voting screen itself will not be able to accommodate the whole ballot paper. So voters will have to switch from side to side to look for the details of the candidate they wish to vote for. The current voting system is simple. 3,000 plus roughly was out of the 500,000 votes. 1999 election, it was 11%.
Based on facts.
Based on facts. Let's look at the functioning, the success of the current system. Now you've had one election. So this time voters know, okay, there's no ballot, there's no name on the ballot paper. We have to look for it in a book. There's no symbol because we have to choose our candidate. So the current voting system from the last voting system has not changed. It's exactly the same. So here voters will have an advantage because they already know how to work through the system.
Supervisor of Elections, another question here from Observer Group, which is now their terms of reference been set out. They have started their work with the Elections Office?
Yes, they have. The first set of observers were accredited last week Friday. Yesterday I accredited another 4 actually. So they have 7 observers on the ground already.
For the benefit of listeners, where are these observers from? Which countries?
At the moment, the first set of observers that we have accredited are from Australia, and soon we will be having observers from other parts of the world as well.
So there you go. The elections again will have multinational observers. The group was in existence also in 2014 during the 2014 elections. The same will be done during the 2018 elections. Now, just talking about campaigning. Before we finish off, campaign advertising, of course, finishes. The blackout is from 7:30 a.m. 12th of November. What about campaign material? If it's seen to be it's racist in nature, or there's racial vilification, religious vilification, because we know that campaign meetings have really gotten off the ground after the announcement of the writ yesterday. What are the steps to be taken by the Supervisor of Elections?
So, first of all, it will be an electoral offence. We have already reported one such incident to FICAC. The person has been charged by FICAC. Also be offended because someone is offending somebody, we need to move away from it. And that is most important. The constituency system has been abolished in Fiji, made into a one constituency to get rid of the divisions, the quotas and the ethnic divisions that it created. So during campaign, we should keep campaign clean. Keep campaigns clean. Stick to your campaign policies should never be arising out of religion or race. That's the law. It's an accepted norm, and there are hundreds of other things you can campaign about. I will not delve into what you should campaign about. That may probably take me across the line from my role, but definitely I can say the law doesn't allow it, and Fijians should look out for it. We are keeping an eye on social media, as well as an eye on reports that are coming across to us as well.
You were supposed to get a list, official list from political parties, their official pages on Facebook. Have you received them?
We have received that. We have received the list of official pages, but we asked parties to also take the next step and to ask the unofficial pages to close.
They just have to contact Facebook for that?
Yes. The parties are not keen to do that.
They have told you that?
They have written to us and said that makes a lot of pressure on us to take care of that. I mean, if someone creates a profile under my name, I would, without hesitation, immediately request Facebook to remove that page because it is not my page.
Well, the fact that the political parties will not take that action and contact Facebook, what steps will you take?
So we are now considering what we can do. Of course, if the law is breached, then the party will have to go and defend itself. We will not be there to defend the party. It will count in their favor if they have already tried to take the necessary action to stop the breach of the law. If they're not keen to do that, we leave it to them at their peril. They can go to court and defend themselves if FICAC places a charge on them. However, we would still urge political parties to consider positively the extent to which it may damage their own campaign should fake profiles be used in their name to breach the law. And this is something that parties need to consider. Social media is a real thing. It can no longer be ignored. Everybody must take note of this fact. And just because there are no laws about social media, there is a law, actually it hasn't come into force yet, but it is also a public space. So just like it is illegal to swear in the streets, Facebook can also be considered as a public area, and if you're swearing, police must take action, and people should report these activities. If you are being targeted on social media, if you are being harassed on social media, if you have been targeted on a campaign, take action. I myself have taken action against a person. He's currently hiding, trying to avoid getting the writ, but that's the character of these people, and people should not hesitate to complain to the relevant authorities, the Fiji Police Force, and the Fiji Police Force will then exercise their own powers that is there.
Mr. Saneem, just in relation to the blackout on campaigning that will start at 7:30 a.m. on the 12th of November, what will happen to those people if they go on social media and continue to campaign or put up material that is seen as campaigning?
We will be publishing some information material on that now that it is right time to do it. However, there is a blackout, there is a restriction on campaign through media, and political parties will have to comply with that they should not campaign through media, and the guidelines will be coming out shortly.
There you go. That is the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Mohammed Saneem, in relation to elections as we build up into these 44 days, the crucial period, the process that is being followed up till November 14th, when we'll have election day. A lot of good questions. I hope you got a lot of clarifications in relation to mainly how can you vote, and if you're working on the day, and several other issues in relation to your loved ones, the elderly and the disabled, plus other clarifications on polling stations as well. Just before we go, in relation to voters, now they are registered, they have their details, they're all set. The dates, let's run it over again.
Yes.
Nomination starts today.
Right.
For a registered voter. These are some of the things that are happening between now and election day. Mr. Saneem.
Thank you. Nominations for candidates open today at 8 a.m. Nominations will continue to remain open until 12 o'clock on 15th of October. The withdrawal of nominations is by 12 o'clock on 16th of October. Appeals and objections to nominations can be filed by 4 p.m. on 16th of October. And then by the 19th of October, following the determination on the appeals and objections by the Electoral Commission, the FEO will conduct the National Candidates List ball draw. And then on the 24th of October, postal vote applications close at 5 p.m.
That is the important one for those who are working on that day.
Yes.
If you work on November 14th, you'd like to vote, that is an option available to you. That is open from now until the 24th of this month.
Yes.
For postal voting. That also applies for those who may be elderly and the disabled.
As well as overseas voters.
Overseas voters as well.
And
right
yes.
now, the total number of registered overseas voters
Is around
stands at
8,041.
8,041.
Yes. Then the more significant date after that will be on the 5th of November, when pre-poll will start, and it will end on 10th of November.
And how many people are expected to vote during that period?
Looking at roughly 70,000.
So 70,000 plus voters expected to go voting at the different polling stations. This is mainly the outer islands and the highlands in the interior. So that's from the 5th of November to the 10th of November. Those ballot boxes then are transported to your count station in Suva.
Yes. And then the media blackout on campaigning starts at 7:30 a.m. on 12th of November. And on 13th of November at 6 o'clock, the FEO voter service centers will close. And then on 14th of November is election day. Voting will be between 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. And postal votes must be received by us by 6 p.m. on that day for us to count it. And then on 14th of November in the night, provisional results will come out. That's the dates. If I can use the same platform at this time to also talk about the results app. If you haven't downloaded it already, the Fijian Elections Office results app will have results on election night periodically. Every 15 minutes we will be updating it, and we might give you the first results at 7:30 p.m. And after that you can use the results app to get information directly. We have now added some more features to the results app. You can type your voter number on the results app to find your polling venue. That feature has been added. We have also added a tab for candidates for this year's election, and it will be available once that bold row has taken.
When the bold row takes place.
So the 2014 results are still there, so that you can familiarize yourself with how the app will operate for the 2018 general election.
There you go. For all voters out there registered, we've got the numbers here. 634,120 people have registered to vote in the 2018 general elections as at 17 September this year. According to Mr. Saneem, even yesterday, almost 10,000 people queuing up at different places, 60 centers in different parts of the country before 6 p.m. yesterday to change their details to get registered. So that number is expected to increase. However, everything is all set to go as far as voters is concerned, because the final roll is all being clarified now before it is printed. And that will be the roll that will be used at the different polling stations. But the app and there's other communication methods available now where you can check your polling station now. You can check your details before you actually go to the polling station to vote. So those are the details available. We have more information coming through later this afternoon. Mr. Saneem, thank you very much for